Get more confidence in navigating this bull run of Ethereum without having to become an expert in Elliott Wave or technical analysis by spending just half an hour a week on our Ethereum analysis. It's really hard to know what the market is going to do next by looking at a chart if you don't know your Elliott Wave and technical analysis in depth. At Pure Elliott Wave, we have a total combined experience of 19 years. For me, 11 of those as a CMT. We're here to hold your hand and guide you through this bullish run for Ethereum, and you'll know exactly when I'm ready to add to my investment that I bought in 2019 or when I'm ready to sell some or all. Pure Elliott Wave will shortly be providing weekly analysis of Ethereum using Elliott Wave and technical analysis. When we launch this new subscription, we will offer a grandfather rate for the first 24 hours only. Sign up to our notification list to make sure you don't miss out on this opportunity. Good morning, everybody. This is Lara from Pure Elliott Wave with your Monday to Friday update for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. When I get to XRP, I'm going to go through my full Elliott Wave count for it, and tomorrow I'll do the same for Ethereum. Technicals for Bitcoin. I said yesterday I expected them all to move higher, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. So we have an upward session for Bitcoin. It's broken above what was previous resistance at 68,400. And so resistance again becomes support. Look for next resistance at 73,100. If it can close above that on a daily session with push from volume, then look out for a very brief back test of support before price moves up and away. That back test of support could be intraday. It could just be a long lower wick touching the support area before price continues higher. I expect after the next upward breakout to new all-time highs for Bitcoin, we're going to start to see a real increase in energy to the upside. I expect to see an increase in volume, range, volatility, and momentum. Yesterday, an upward session saw a strong increase in volume beyond the previous two sessions, but still overall, volume is still declining as price is still range-bound. For the short term, the volume profile does look bullish. ADX is declining. The previous upward trend reached very extreme territory. It's now back in neutral. The DX lines are whipsawing. There is no clear trend at this time, but at the higher time frames, there is still an upward trend. At the daily time frame, ADX is now setting itself up for a signal either way. RSI is neutral. The pullback, part of a healthy ongoing bull market, has managed to bring RSI back into neutral after reaching deeply overbought and exhibiting double bearish divergence. The bearishness of this is most likely now resolved, and the upward trend for the larger time frames looks ready to resume. Money flow also remains neutral. ATR showing a very slight decline for yesterday's session. It's about the only cause of concern I have for that strong upward session yesterday. It's very good to see an increase in volume, but I would have rather have preferred to also see an increase in range. Now that's okay, we don't necessarily see always an increase in volume and range day on day. Sometimes we see slightly smaller days or slightly weaker volume. It doesn't change the probability of continuing upward movement, which I expect is very likely for Bitcoin. At the daily time frame, I have two Elliott Wave counts for Ethereum, and I will be going through my Elliott Wave monthly, weekly, daily charts in more detail tomorrow for Ethereum. Today, a quick look at the daily. My main Elliott Wave count considers that the middle of a third wave for Ethereum has passed back in the end of February, and that the strongest portion of upward movement, which is expected to be fifth waves to end third wave impulses 1 degree higher, is still ahead of us. I now have a target, a small $4 target zone calculated for my Newt Wave 3 at 8130. Minuet 5, beginning here, would reach 2.618, the length of Minuet 3, and at 8134, my Newt Wave 3, beginning down here, would reach 6.854, the length of my Newt Wave 1. That's a pretty extreme Fibonacci ratio, but looking at past history of this market, its third waves do tend to be particularly strong, longer than 11.09 even. They tend to be quite long, which is normal for cryptocurrencies. Alternatively, if we move the degree of labeling of this movement down 1 degree, this unfolding impulse may only be another first wave within my Newt 3. The middle portion of the third wave may not yet have passed. Still seeing it as an impulse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The target is more close by though at 4886. The fifth wave would reach equality in length with the third wave, When the fifth wave may be complete for this wave count, then a deeper correction for another second wave correction may not move beyond the start of the first wave below 2092.33, but should not get anywhere near that point, should find support at the lower edge of this channel. Daily technicals for Ethereum yesterday saw an increase in upward movement. It's broken above what was previously resistance at 3580, so resistance turns to support. There was a push from volume as well, which is very good to see. Support at 3050 has held, resistance at 3580 has broken. Look for next resistance on the way up at 4200. An increase in volume for yesterday's session for the short term is bullish, but overall volume is still declining. ADX is declining, the DX lines have crossed over. There is no clear trend at this time frame, but at the larger time frame there is still an upward trend indicated. RSI remains neutral, there's plenty of room to go before this reaches extreme, and money flow is neutral, a long way to go before these two reach very extreme. ATR showed a slight decline for Ethereum as well, so both Bitcoin and Ethereum saw good upward movement with push from volume, but a little bit of a decline in range. That's okay, it's not a deal breaker for a bullish case, and I expect we're probably going to see a continuing increase in volume and a huge increase in range for Bitcoin when it makes new all-time highs. Let's look in depth at my Elliott Wave count for XRP using all of the data we have for it. I'm beginning my Elliott Wave count back here in July 2014, and I know different data feeds have different price points. The data I'm working with comes from Cryptocurrencies. I'm working with what I've got. From this low to this high, I see a pretty good completed 5-wave impulse, 1, zigzag for 2, impulse for 3, which is 14.71 times the length of 1. That's not a Fibonacci ratio. I'm just noting how long these third waves are for future price target calculation. 4, a triangle, nice alternation between 2 and 4, and 5, an impulse, which is 6.92 times the length of 3. 5 managed to do that in just 2 months, whereas 3 took 17 months, and this is illustrative of the point I keep trying to make. Here it's in a first wave, which isn't as common, but fifth waves to end third waves, particularly 1 degree higher. Here is a fifth wave to end a first wave, but fifth waves to end sometimes first waves and almost always third waves are often the longest and strongest portion of movement. They cover the greatest distance in terms of price in a shorter amount of time than the third wave. It is the fifth wave that is the strongest, and that's where you get the most profit. I am expecting to see a similar situation for intermediate 5 to end primary 3 and for primary 5 to end cycle 3. Very, very likely I expect this to be an absolutely huge blow off top, and if my targets are wrong, they may not be low enough. They may not be high enough. Within cycle wave 1, primary 3 was 14.71 times the length of primary wave 1. If we see that same ratio exhibited between primary 1 and 3 within cycle 3, then a target for primary 3 is 27.14, and a target for cycle 3 using the same ratio is 40.53. Looking at the Fibonacci number sequence, a possible end to primary 3 may be in November next year if it lasts a Fibonacci 3 years, and if cycle 3 lasts a Fibonacci 8 years, it may end in March 2028. When I get the ends of intermediate 3 and 4 and I know where intermediate 5 begins, I'll be able to calculate a target for primary 3 at intermediate degree as well. At that stage, this may change or widen to a small zone, and then as we get closer to the end and I can calculate the target at more and more degrees, I will keep doing so and try and zoom in on a cluster of calculations so we can have a little higher probability target area for the end of these third waves. That's, I think, the best way to do target calculation for Elliott Wave. Within primary wave 3, I see intermediate 1 and 2 incomplete and intermediate wave 3 beginning, but if intermediate 2 were to continue further, it may not move beyond the start of 1 below 0.2794. I am also noting the duration of these bear markets and how deep they were. Cycle wave 2 lasted 2 years. It is a 0.96 or 96% correction of cycle wave 1. It's extremely likely to be over here, despite how it looks on this chart. Because of the scale, there's very, very little room for cycle 2 to move into and remain and not move beyond the start of wave 1. Likewise, primary wave 2 is a 91% correction of primary wave 1. This is a very deep correction. It lasted a year and 2 months. Since November 2022, we have an upward trend. There is a series of higher highs, there is a series of higher lows. We don't yet have a new higher high above July 2023, but we don't have a lower low as well. So far for the last few months, price has just been moving sideways. But when you look at this portion of movement at the monthly chart level, it's very obvious that we do have some upward trend since November 2022. So assume the trend remains the same until proven otherwise. Now, the bigger context is a huge sideways movement, and we need to see a breakout above resistance at 2.758 or below support at 0.1138 out of this huge consolidation XRP has been in since January 26, 2018 in order to have real confidence in the next direction. Going to the weekly chart, this high here, the end of primary wave 1, is this point here. Primary wave 1 subdivides as a leading expanding diagonal. It has a pretty good fit. Fifth wave ends beautifully at the 1-3 trend line. This 5-wave motive structure trending upward is followed by a corrective pattern backward. This is a double zigzag. W, X, second zigzag for Y is extended in terms of time, but not price. It's a little bit shorter in length, but fairly close to equality in length, but longer in terms of time. Following the completion of primary wave 2, we have another leading expanding diagonal potentially for intermediate wave 1, followed by a relatively shallow correction for 2. Let's take a look at the daily chart. The low of minor wave 2 is this point down here, another leading expanding diagonal for minute wave 1, followed probably by another zigzag correction for minute wave 2. This yields a very bullish wave count. A third wave at minute, minor, intermediate, primary and cycle degrees is expected to be in its early stages for XRP. Alternatively, if we move the degree of labeling here or change the degree in part of this, it's possible the zigzag for minute wave 2 may be incomplete. Now, yesterday I looked at potentially a triangle unfolding sideways. That no longer fits. It doesn't make any sense. B could be an expanded flat. A, B, C. For the expanded flat, C needs to move beyond the end of A, so a new high above 0.6688, and when that completes minuet B, a motive wave structure, a 5-wave structure down for C needs to move below the end of A at 0.5868 to avoid a truncation. This wave count now has a reduced probability. C isn't looking like a very good 5-wave structure, although, to be honest, XRP doesn't always have good-looking motive wave structures. Now, before I get to technical analysis, a reminder, this is my alternate wave count at the monthly time frame. This looks like potentially a triangle completing further. Now, there's a problem with this triangle, though, in terms of Elliott Wave. For the first part, from this low to this high, both of my monthly wave counts see this as a 5-wave impulse. 1, zigzag for 2, impulse for 3, triangle for 4, motive wave for 5. Really good looking 5-wave impulse. Following a 5 up, there should be a 3-step back pattern or a sideways triangle pattern. If it's a triangle, it can't be a second wave, so it could be a B wave, which means XRP could be unfolding as a huge zigzag A, B, C, and when it's complete, it'll absolutely crash. But problem for the short to mid-term for the triangle is within wave E. Within wave E, it may only subdivide as a single zigzag, because here this fits okay as a zigzag, B fits as a double zigzag. It's problematic to see this as a 3, a single zigzag. It will fit as a double. There can only be one multiple zigzag in a triangle, so C fits nicely as a single, D fits nicely as a single, E must be a single zigzag in order for this structure to make sense and meet all Elliott Wave rules, which means intermediate C must move below the end of intermediate A, which has its low at 0.4456 in order for the triangle to complete. I would not want to try and do this. E is far too brief. That just looks absolutely forced. This is a better look. So C needs to move lower. We need to see some downward movement for the short term for this wave count to continue to make sense. Otherwise, the triangle is going to look wrong and forced. For the short term, the upper edge of this channel is now being tested. Here's another thing about Elliott Wave triangles. They normally fit really, really well within their trend lines, and the trend lines within an Elliott Wave triangle can be tested sometimes multiple times. When the triangle is complete, then you get a breakout. At this point, the upper BD trend line is being tested today. If price breaks above this and gives us a full weekly candlestick of green upward movement not touching this trend line, that would constitute a pretty solid breakout. Then I would probably discard this wave count based on very low probability. Technicals on the daily for XRP. Yesterday I considered a pennant pattern. I also considered it for Ethereum, but I've discarded that because it just doesn't work anymore. But it does still potentially work for XRP. Resistance line, support line, breakout point about the same, target from the pennant 0.4478. This would support the triangle idea that I just showed you on the monthly chart. We could see a pullback for XRP to this area. I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. If we see resistance above 0.675 broken, then I'd discard the pennant. It could be forming into a flag, but it's getting a bit long in the tooth now. If price does break above resistance at 0.675, look for next resistance at 82 cents. There was a golden cross for XRP a few days ago as the 50-day moving average crossed over the 200-day moving average. This is a very bullish signal and it negates the death cross which came toward the lows. And here's another point about these signals from moving averages. Because they're based on averages of past data, they are necessarily lagging. I rather use them as a confirmation or lack of confirmation of everything else, and I give these least weight. This is a bullish signal though, so it adds support to the bullish analysis for XRP at this time. Yesterday's upward session has again come with an increase in volume. That's very good to see, although overall volume continues to decline as price remains in a consolidation. ADX is rising. It's still below 15 though, so it's not high enough yet to indicate an upward trend, but if it does reach 15 because the positive DX line is above the negative, then it would indicate an upward trend, and that would be the strongest bullish signal ADX can give, and I would give that a lot of weight. RSI is neutral. There's a long way to go before these indicators become extreme. Money flow also neutral. ATR showing a little bit of a decline. There is a little bit of weakness though, an upward movement, a bit of push from volume, but not an increase in volatility for yesterday's session for any of these three markets. And that's it from me today with your quick update. I hope everyone's having a lovely day.